Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, I am going to be talking to Allison Sutter. Welcome, Allison. Excited to have you on the show.
Nice to be here.
So tell us a little bit about who Allison is.
So I am a teacher, been a teacher for forever. I started out in elementary education and then I migrated over into self-help, personal development, sort of spiritual mentorship kind of capacity. And that's what I do is I work with women in a one-to-one mentorship fashion on three things specifically. We work on fostering their own trust in their intuitive guidance, hearing it, trusting it, following it, transforming fear or any of those, thoughts of limitation, feelings of limitation when they show up into something better. And then being one's authentic self and really feeling the confidence of being one's and not worrying about, the ever-present judgment of the world at large.
Well, I like that one a lot. Well, that's more what you do, but who are you?
Oh, you want to know who I am?
Yeah.
I am a spiritual being having a physical experience. I love reading, writing. I love gardening. I love moving, exercise. I have 3 children and 1 husband.
Like that. That's good.
I'm a constant mover and creator. Like my yard is in constant movement because I'm always creating and I'm always writing because writing is a point of focus.
Yeah.
And so it helps me pull myself into the moment and gather my thoughts and organize them. And then I share them.
Nice. See, that's who you are.
Okay.
You know what? You're not the only person that does that, though. A lot of us equate who we are with what we do.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of what we do, obviously it comes from who we are. Hopefully we're not doing things that don't bring us joy, but
right.
It's not everything that we are. There's so much.
Oh, absolutely not. Good point.
So let's jump into the main topic of our conversation, and you start your story wherever it is you think is a good point to talk about mental health.
Okay. So in hindsight, I was born in 1970. Clearly that was before mental health conversations came into normalcy.
Yes.
And in hindsight, I remember having acute anxiety and panic starting at about age 11. Okay. And that was because of the dynamic of our family. My sister was in rehab by the time she was 13, 14, something like that.
Wow.
So there was, and she was diagnosed as schizophrenic a little while later. So there was a great deal of concentrated energy on my sister.
Yes.
But within the context of this, there was silence within the home. So nobody was talking organically about, it was sort of like, well, Laura did this. However, this is how we feel about it. And this is what it's like to process this. And how are you feeling? And it's like nothing of that.
Yeah.
So in hindsight, I had suicidal ideations. I had depression, anxiety. In high school, I drank and did drugs to try to mitigate the intensity of someone without articulating it, saying, we're not going to talk, you can't be you, which is someone who's really sensitive to all of these things that are happening and is knowledgeable that this is difficult, but we're not going to talk about it.
Yes. And that was very common. Even, I was born in 87. So don't do math. So I was born in 87 and all through the 90s, still, it wasn't much of a conversation. Even the early 2000s was very little conversation about it.
Yes.
It isn't until the last, I'd say 10 years probably, which actually started having people come out and talk more openly about it. So I can remember very similar to your story, where as a teenager, late 90s, early 2000s, and my brother a lot of focus was on him and his trouble and what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And so how did I process it? Nobody in the house talked about it. Oh no. My mom thought that if she shielded me from it,
yes,
that it wouldn't affect me. Right. So I think our parents think they tried to do what they thought was best, but we newish, right, what was going on. I didn't know the details of it, but I knew that my mom was always having to go out and deal with things for my brother.
Right.
So, there was things there. So very similar story. I totally get that. But yeah, you're talking about the 70s. It was happening in the 90s and in the early 2000s too.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's been a very hush hush conversation and no one has vocalized it. So yeah, I mean, that's what I grew up with, and it stuck with me because the conversation was never opened up. So in my 20s, still suffering from anxiety, suffering from depression, suffering from um, almost created a dual personality because I'm an introvert. I'm a very quiet, reserved person. But the anxiety of going out and being in a public situation created this very sort of insecure extrovert
Yes.
personality. So, and I even remember when I started teaching in Chicago, I taught, first grade for a number of years. Parents' night was like mentally, I was off the rails because being conscious of self, I still was not emotionally aware enough to be stable, and being
Yeah.
conscious and aware of myself to know that I had low self-esteem, low self-confidence. Being the spotlight was very difficult.
Yeah. It's kind of like you put on this, right? And you said it, right? You have this dual personality, but you put on this persona. So everybody thinks that it's all good. And
Yes.
a lot of us with depression, anxiety, whatever, do that. We put on this
Mhm.
persona and it is exhausting. And then you get
Yes.
home, at least for me, I would get home and just sleep. I just need sleep. That was so much work pretending to
Yeah.
be something that you're
Yes.
not.
Yes. Exhausting. Exhausting.
Yeah.
Mhm. Or you
So
find another methodology to cope with that, which is either drinking or some addiction or something that, shopping or
yeah, the
whatever.
bad coping skills.
Yes.
Yes. So when did you finally uh, realize that you were suffering from anxiety and depression and decide to go and get help?
So probably I always knew it was there, but to vocalize it and to
Yes.
be upfront about it with any other human being, because part of anxiety is you want to hide it. That's like the biggest fear you have is someone's going to find out that you're a fraud and that you're actually anxious and not have no self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I actually started writing the program that I wrote that for me personally, what helped me was recognizing that, and I'm not religious, but a non-physical consciousness, having this physical experience. And when I connected those two, because I had an experience when I was 20 that my mom died. And when she died, I was there with her and I recognized what happened to energy when it was not focused in the physical and it was pure love. I'm like, but I didn't do anything with it, right? I was 20. I was like,
Yeah.
it's not aware of what was even happening until I thought back on it. But it was understanding this relationship for me. That's the only thing that gave me stability. It was knowing that I am a pure positive being that's having this physical experience and I can experience negativity, but even the idea of experience negativity is possible because there's pure positive energy within me at all times. Like that's just a fact. And so that was what I did. And then I would have experiences where I'm like, okay, so I'm anxious, I'm doubtful. Why is that? Oh, because it's sort of like a science concept. It's that science experience in high school where you have a control and a variable. Your control is who you really are. It's this pure being of love. And the variable are all these different emotions that we can feel based on different sensations and thoughts and beliefs and all this other stuff. So I had to be cognizant of everything that I was doing over the course of, I don't know, it was probably the last 10 years of being more and more aware every single situation of why I'm feeling anxious and knowing that I can't feel anxious unless I have a current active belief about myself. So what is that? Oh, I'm not worthy. Oh, is that true? No, it's not true. So I had to go through this process.
I love that. That is something similar that my therapist told me to do when I was going through some stuff and trying to talk to my boss at the time to say, hey, I needed certain hours or less hours, whatever. And it was the same thing. Why is it true? Oh, it's not actually true. So
Mhm.
why are you still worried about it? Why are you still anxious about it?
Yep. Yeah.
And it
And then
works so well.
it does work if you understand the concept, because we buy into these truths, and our truths are I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'll never succeed, imposter. We buy into these truths, but the truth is we are amazing creatures. We are, you know, based on love and integrity. And if we just come from that place and not worry so much, because we invest in the thoughts of others. And that's part of social anxiety. You invest heavily in what others are going to think of you. And it's usually from a place of, I've done something wrong, or you've misunderstood me, and that's such a huge fear. But little by little, it's like baby steps moving into this other truth, which is the real truth, and then you feel stable, because you cannot control other people. You'll never be able to control what they think.
So and I still say this to my kid, but often when my kid was younger, so he's 15 now. And so when he was younger, I would always say, because you know how kids go, oh, it was their fault, they did it,
Yes.
whatever. I got to blame everybody else because I don't want to be in trouble. My kid would always get more in trouble for blaming the other kid than to just owning up to doing it.
Yes.
But so I'd say, well, you can only control your actions. So it really doesn't matter what that person is doing. I only care about what you're doing right now. To drill home that concept you were just talking about of you cannot control the other people in your life. You cannot control all of those other circumstances. You can only control yourself. And I was always telling my kid that. And even now, so when I go and coach the kids at kickboxing, sometimes it's, oh, my partner's not doing this or that or whatever they're complaining about at that time. And I go, okay, but I'm talking to you. I don't care what he's doing right now. I'm talking to you about your guards. So don't tell me that his guards are down, because I'll go talk to him later. I'm talking to you about your guards being down.
Yeah.
So owning, because we make mistakes, whatever, but a lot of us, we don't want to own them because it goes back to the we're not worthy, we're losers, we're whatever. So we don't want to own those mistakes because they're mistakes. Oh no,
right.
to be perfect.
It's frightening. It's very frightening to think about that concept. Even today, my kids, so one's coming home from college. So I have a sophomore in college, a senior in high school, and a sophomore in high school. So the sophomore in college is coming home, but there was this whole, do the other two go visit and see the campus because they haven't been yet. But, there was it was a big to do. They decide. So I've always given my kids the option to choose for themselves too, because I think being forced into options it doesn't work for anyone. But so they were flopping back and forth and they chose not to go. And then once they made that decision, there was the guilt. Oh my God, Isabella's not going to love me. So that's the kind of stuff we're working through with my own kids, is recognizing, okay, you feel that guilt, but that guilt is there because you believe that you have done something that is guilt worthy. You can't control what Isabella's going to think. All you can do is come from a place of love and say, I love you. And I really hope you understand that I'll go another time, and then drop it. But it's still that guilt that it was instant. It was like the guilt. Oh my God, she's going to hate me, whatever. So,
yeah. And that's where communication becomes so important too. When we don't communicate what we're thinking, we start, I'm going to keep saying we, but really it's always from personal experience. All right. Sure. So we'll say, just like you with that guilt. And I know I'll start having like a whole conversation, pretending like the other person, trying to see what they would say. Meanwhile, I have no idea what they're going to say until I talk to them. So I'm having this entire conversation in my head about what they're going to say to me, so I can be prepared for what they're going to say and try to mitigate any guilt, I guess. Meanwhile, I have no idea what they're going to say. And 9 out of 10 times, it's always like, oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I've made this huge story in my head about all of these horrible things that are going to happen and how they're going to hate me. And they're just like, oh no, I got it. It's fine. Yeah, cool.
Yes, exactly. So part of the exercise of being human is catching yourself. And that's what I had to do. I had to catch myself in the midst of it and be like, wait a second. Is it really worth my energy? Because like you said, historically, that has not been the truth, right? That has not been the actualization of my experience. So those are misleading thoughts that are based on something. They're being delivered from a belief that says you're wrong, they're going to hate you. But I can change that belief, which changes my entire experience, which changes my confidence, which changes my dialogue, which changes how I enter the conversation. whatever they do is whatever they do. I can only do what I can do, and I can
Exactly.
control my inner realm. I can do that. And it takes it takes some getting used to. It takes some practice. It takes
It's
letting the
not
momentum
easy.
of the other thing slow and putting momentum into it, energy into another thing.
Yeah. And it's picking and choosing what you have the energy for, or what people are all saying now, the spoons for. How many spoons do you have in the day?
Yes.
And so it's deciding what you want to spend your spoons on. And sometimes people aren't going to agree with your decision, but that doesn't make you a bad person.
No.
That just means that you are trying to do what is best for you. And if those people truly care about you, then they'll understand.
Yeah. And not to mention, there's the idea that, this might be a quote unquote negative experience for the kids, but unless you recognize that it is negative and you work through processing it and work through it, you won't be as aware next time to catch it sooner and to be spending less time in that zone of destruction,
Yes.
So,
and that goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning of how our parents were trying to shield us from knowing anything, but that didn't actually help us to gain the proper positive coping strategies. Instead,
right.
we developed negative coping strategies because we didn't have somebody there to help us guide us through those situations, like you're saying right now.
Yeah. And to be aware that we can handle those things that we think are going to destroy us. We are handling it, and it will get better next time because we're aware. Oh, wait. Yeah, exactly. Right. We can.
I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but this is the one I picked today because I have.
There you go. You're you have some precognition there.
For those who are listening and not watching, I picked the sign today that says you are stronger than you think.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much beauty in recognizing that the things that we experience aren't going to take us out, that they're simply experiences, and we're titanium. We are strong enough to withstand these things that feel like they're taking us down, but they're actually not. It's just an experience.
It's one little blip. Like when I think back to all those years as a teenager, when I thought it was the worst thing ever and everybody hated me and whatever. I look back now and I go, high school was like the smallest little bit of my life.
Yep. Yes.
And so, and I know, like I said, my 15-year-old, and you've got one in high school. Well, two in high school, right?
Two in high school, one in college.
That's right. And they think that high school is the be all and end all.
Yeah.
And that anything they do right now is going to affect them for the whole rest of their lives, forever and ever and ever. And the truth really is, it's just such a small part of your life. It really is. For me, high school was nothing. Like it was a horrible experience. I hated everything about high school. I skipped as much as I possibly could. Because I didn't want to be there, not just because I didn't want to do school. Like I didn't want to be around those people that were there.
Yeah.
And looking back though, that was such a small part of my life.
Yeah. The intensity of being a teen is so it's intense, but it can be transformational as well, depending on how you use it. So
yes, exactly. So what are some of the really good coping skills that you have learned? And I mean, we've obviously been talking about them, but give us a couple more specific coping strategies that you really found work well for you.
So the one thing, and I'll give you like a little bit of a mini sentence so that listeners can use it for themselves, because this situation is being human is so utterly unique. No two people can compare the same perspectives or the same mechanisms to cope with what they're dealing with, because it depends on what your beliefs are. It depends on your situation. It depends on your age. It depends on your where. It depends on so much stuff. So what I always do, so I'll tell you the sentence, then I'll tell you the things that come from that, my inspired actions that come from that. But it goes like this. It says, follow your highest level of excitement in any given moment. Take it as far as you can take it from the choices that you have before you till you can't take it any farther, because there's going to be a point at which you stop. And don't assume that the excitement or the interest or the curiosity that you started with is supposed to produce something specific, and stay in a positive mindset no matter what. So wherever you are. So the reason that's so cool is because if you are in the lower emotional realm, follow your highest level of excitement means what is your highest level based on where you start from. It doesn't mean what is the most, ecstatic thing you can do. It's like, where are you and how much better can you be, or how excited can you be? Because when my kids start their homework, sometimes I used to tell them, pick the least worst of the worst. Like
Yes.
One is less worse than the others. Like just pick that one. So start where you are from the choices that you have. Don't make stuff up. Don't think, oh, I wish I was, on a vacation in the beach. No, what are your choices right now? What is the most exciting thing you can do right now? Follow it until you can't do it anymore. There's going to be a point at which you're interrupted. You have to stop. You run out of time. You got to go to the bathroom. You're hungry. Like there's going to be a point at which you stop, but don't assume it's supposed to produce something specific. You have to leave it open to the abundance of the universe. It might be a step along the way to something else. And a lot of people do this in the writing process, or they do this in relationships where they think the relationship is supposed to be something versus what it actually is. And then sort of start to use your mental agility, just because you have mental flexibility. Stay in is the most positive mindset you can stay in regards to that situation. So that applies to everything and anything. So that works for the person as an individual. So if I'm cleaning the bathrooms, let's take something crappy, really bad. I will start at the time of the day that can be the most exciting for me. Maybe I'll listen to a podcast. I will get myself in a place where I can actually enjoy the activity before I do it. That's like an everyday mundane activity. When I wrote my book, I took that and I started before the book was even written. I took pieces of ideas that were exciting. I would hit on an idea. Maybe I watched a show, maybe I read an article, maybe I talked to somebody, I write it down on note cards. And then I said, and then those note cards became sentences. And I followed that whole formula. I didn't assume it was supposed to be something necessarily, even the organization of the book. I'm like, I'm just going to follow this. And then sentence became paragraphs, and then paragraphs became chapters. I'm like, oh, so how do I want to organize this? I didn't go take a class that said, you have to do it this way. I said, how do I want to do it? Right. So I organized the whole book based on this formula. And then when I launched the book, I didn't assume the book was supposed to be a bestseller, right? I didn't assume it was supposed to be anything other than what it was, which was a project of love.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of where
and
that formula works.
And it all is coming back to what we've been talking about this whole time, is focusing on the things that you have control over.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think we just found the name of your episode. Something around the lines of controlling what you can.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, because you can't control how many people are actually going to go buy your book. You can simply control how it is written and how it comes out to people. But
even in so it originally signed with a publisher, a small publishing house. That guy ended up being not very honest. He went bankrupt. Ooh. He sold it to another company that was a religious company who I did not mesh with because I'm spiritual, not religious. And they had all of these, they started putting all of these things like, you have to do this and you have to buy this and you have to buy this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm out. So I had to buy my rights back and self-publish it again. So had I assumed that an original contract was supposed to be something, I would have been a lot unhappy. I just was like, all right, we're flowing with this. Where is it going to go?
Yeah.
It ended up back in my hands. Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's what was supposed to happen.
Yeah. I used to be, I say used to, I still kind of am, but I'm trying hard not to be. I used to be a very, very rigid thinker. Things were very much only one way. And it's taken me a lot of therapy and a lot of time and learning to come a little bit out of that. I'm going to say I'm like 50% out of that. I don't think I'll ever truly be out of it because it's part of me, but that's okay.
That's okay.
And it is that very rigid thinking that often got me into not trouble, like the way we think of it, but brain trouble, depression trouble, right? That rigid thinking is what switched it on in my head to be like, oh no, you're awful. This is horrible. Why would you do that? Everyone hates you now. Like, oh, my brain isn't very nice to me. It doesn't like me.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I can totally relate to that, but it takes a little while to get out of that pattern and that habit of thinking, but the mind is so ridiculously flexible.
It
If we
really
can
is.
habitualize ourselves into one way, we can do it another way.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the best things that I told myself over the last few years, especially when my kid was getting worse and worse and we didn't know why. So eventually at the age of 8, he finally got diagnosed with autism, because before that, everybody was just saying how bad of a kid he was, and oh, he's just throwing temper tantrums, yada yada yada. And we're like, I don't think that's it. I really don't think
Yeah.
that's it. And so I used to just tell myself, okay, 1 minute at a time. And I know in like AA and stuff like that, they say 1 day at a time. Well, 1 day was too long. I could not 1 day it. That was way
Yes.
too much time. Because it would switch in an instant with him, because it was an overstimulated thing, and we didn't know what was causing it at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was literally 1 minute at a time, which really helped me get through, to be able to keep going. Because there was definitely days that I didn't want to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I still live 1 minute at a time. There are times where I feel anxiety bubbling up and figure out where it's coming from. But it's like, I literally live one moment at a time, because that's the place where I feel most connected, confident. And I can't go too far. People used to tell me like, set big goals. And
I
I'm
know.
like, I'm sorry, I can't, because there's too much time and space. There's too much anxiety. There's too much pressure. I'm a very productive person, but it's productive based on one moment of time.
Yes.
Based on that formula.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why, like, when people ask me to come and book on the show, when I first started the show, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so stressful, because like my schedule is filled up. So now I need to book these people like a month in advance. And I'm like freaking out, because what's going to happen in a month? Am I still going to be around? It's blah, 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 blah. And so now I'm a little bit more calm about that, but it's still there that, well, how do I plan something 6 months from now? And I know my life has changed so many times between working full time and then not being able to work full time, having cancer, having job closures, whatever. And so it is so hard to try and make those big goals like people try to tell you. And I mean, I have big goals. I would love for this show to have a bajillion subscribers. Yes,
Sure.
bajillion is my technical term. But I can only control, and we've been saying the whole episode, I can only control my right here and this interview right now, and when this interview right here will come out to the public. That's all I can control. So I can't worry about the fact that, I want to hit the 1,000 subscribers and 2,000 and 3,000. It will come in time.
It will come. Yeah, absolutely. I have a podcast, but I don't focus on it because it's not my highest level of excitement. And to schedule something a month out would have caused me anxiety, because it's not my highest level of excitement right now. Other things are. So I'm doing these other things, and that's okay. It's okay.
And that is such a beautiful thing for people to remember too, is that it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay if you need to take a rest today. It's okay if you've changed your mind about what you want to do. So it was 2 days ago, I think. And I'm talking to my husband, and we were talking about people going to school and changing what they want to be. Because we were talking about the school curriculum and how my kid is learning grade 10 science right now. And he's learning stuff that is just, to me, completely stupid to learn. Unless you're going to go and be a scientist.
Right.
And at 15 years old, he knows he's not going to go and be a scientist.
Right.
And I get that. I mean, people change careers all the time. So I do, in a way, understand that you need to have a broad understanding of certain topics to make those decisions as you get older. And I said to my husband, well, yeah, just like, how many times have I changed jobs? He's like, this year or altogether? Because I'm always doing what you say and following my highest level of excitement. And I think I've found it. I think this is my place to be right here.
Nice.
But we are allowed to do that. It is okay to change. I did not go to school for this. I spent a lot of money doing psychology instead and stuff. So like, it's okay. If you had an experience, like I'll always say my college experience was amazing. I loved every moment of it. I guess in a way it's sort of helping me now because psychology is good and interviewing, right? But ultimately I'm not in the field that I went to school for anymore.
Right.
I did it for 6 years and I'm not there anymore. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So don't think about the fact that, oh my gosh, I just wasted thousands of dollars on this program and now I don't want to do it anymore. Think about the positive aspects that you could take away from your experience there.
Yeah. And that's where I violated that whole formula for so long, because I assumed the assumption that decision at that point in time, because it was the thing that I wanted to do the most, was supposed to turn into something specific. I went and got a master's degree in education. Nothing came, I mean, as soon as I got that, it was about a year, and then I left because I gave birth to my firstborn and it wasn't financially feasible for me to pay someone to, it was just the situation it was. But if I look back on that and feel guilt because I'm assuming that decision was supposed to be a certain trajectory in a specific way, then it's just battery on self. And then I'm just beating myself up.
Exactly.
So if you literally follow that formula and you don't make assumptions, you will understand the synchronicities of your life, the flow, and everything is always working out for us, even when we can't see, how to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And if we
it can take years to figure
it can
that
take
out.
years. Right.
If
so
we ever do.
well, yeah, I mean, some of us never do, and that's okay. And it's like, but if you only have this moment to be happy, and you can choose to invest in the anxious thoughts, or you can choose to try to invest in something else that makes you feel better. And the other thing that was monumental to me is I realized that creating from this sense of calm created more of the things that I enjoy because of what it was birthed from, right? I'm birthing from a place of centered calmness. Therefore, I birth things that are centered and calm. More stuff I'm excited about versus birthing from this anxious place.
Yeah.
Just feeds into other things that maybe I don't prefer, or it's sort of like, when you're all angry and you get in a car and you have a car accident, it's a very similar kind of approach and energy and the way things manifest and work. It's like, all right, so my literal only job is to bring myself back to center and move forward from there, versus trying to pummel my way through and strong arm everything that I want to make sense and have happen from this other place, which is so exhausting.
Yes.
And when I finally got that in my heart, in my head, it's like, oh, I can relax for the next 50 years until I don't have to do the human thing anymore.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now, where can people find these books that you have written? Tell us about them a little bit.
Yeah. So the book that was my sort of tome to my experience is called Accelerate Your Mojo, because it's about not going faster, but connecting to that centered self sooner. Mojo, I refer to as that connection to that intuitive self that we all are. It's on Amazon. It's just, it's self-published. I actually have other books. I wrote a couple of children's books. There's a book called Ebb and Flow, A Day at the Beach. And that is in its most, because it's for preschoolers, and it's about two characters that go to the beach, but in its simplistic form, it is the Accelerate Your Mojo formula in the most simplistic form to try to help kids sort of move into this place of getting to center before you move forward, which kids automatically do. Preschoolers, young kids, most of them automatically move into the place of higher joy without you telling them. It's their natural state.
It's us as parents, adults, teachers, society that tell them that's wrong and that they shouldn't do that because they have to grow up. But I don't understand why growing up means we can't be happy too.
Right. So there's that. There's like a book called Wildcat Adventures with Adjectives. So that's for like homeschooling people. And then what else? Those are the most important ones.
Excellent.
They're just on Amazon.
So go and just put in Allison Sutter and they're all coming.
Accelerate Your Mojo book or one of those titles, and it'll pop up. It's just just self-published.
Yeah, but see, you got to take out that just part. It's don't be like it's just self-published. No, it's self-published, and you're proud of that because you know what? Most people on this show are self-published. I'm self-published, and there's a lot of really, really good books out there that are self-published. And I used to do that too, and be like, "Oh, it's just self-published." Like I just did it myself. No. That take the just out. No more just.
Yeah, well, I'm much happier this way because having been through the publisher experience, I'm like, you know what? Not for me. It's right. So it is self-published and it's just me. And if you need to connect with me. It's just me. I have a very boutique business. I'm not like claiming to be something I'm not. I'm just it's just me. So that's it. And I'm on Instagram. There's a lot of stuff. It's just Allison Sutter 3 is my name on Instagram. I post a lot of stuff on there.
Awesome. And we're going to put those links down in the description below so that everybody can very easily follow you. Any last words of wisdom for our listeners, viewers?
Follow your intuition, not anyone else's. It's right for you.
Wonderful. So thank you again, Allison, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So again, make sure you check out those links down in the description below so you can follow Allison and get a hold of her stuff. And it's perfect because she's got a book for the adults and then she's got the book for the kids and everybody will get the same message. Perfect. If you want to support the show, we do have a merch store. Here's one of the tank tops, one of my favorites. I'm ending the stigma. What are you doing? 10% of the proceeds always goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. We do also have a Patreon if you want some behind the scenes footage or some first look at some of the stuff I am writing. And as always, hit that like and subscribe button here at the channel, share the episode out. And now, as always, remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly. Bye.